This is Lesson 5 on page 75, Managing Project Resources. Now that you have created a work breakdown structure, you must define who and what is needed to complete the project tasks. As a project manager, one of the main areas you need to focus on during the planning phase of a project is resources. You have to determine the people, tools, equipment, and materials that will be required for the project. Defining resource requirements early will solidify your project plan and help you adjust as resource availability changes over the life of the project. In this lesson, you will add resources to the project plan file, create a resource calendar, enter costs for resources, assign resources to tasks, and resolve resource conflicts. So topic A is adding resources to a project. Once you have entered project tasks into a blank Microsoft project file, project resources are the next critical set of data. In this topic, you will add resources to a project plan. Resources are the people, equipment, materials, or other costs that are used to accomplish a project task. In other words, resources are the staff, supplies, equipment, and other expenses that you need to execute a project. In Microsoft Project, you can define your resources and assign them to tasks. At the bottom of 66, work resources. A work resource is a resource that is employed on a time basis. The most common work resources are the people who will perform the tasks, also known as human resources. You can refer to work resources by name, such as Gary Clark, or by generic labels, such as landscaper, depending on your needs. In addition to human resources, work resources also include resources that you need to schedule or track cost on a time basis. For example, a printing press can only run one job at a time, so you may need to schedule based on its availability. Or you may need to rent equipment, such as a moving truck, to perform a task, and you need to schedule most efficiently to minimize cost. Space can also be treated as a work resource if you need to schedule around its availability or track its cost by time. Examples include conference rooms, storage, convention centers, and so on. You can also specify the maximum number of units that the resource can work on the project. For example, a person may only be able to devote 50% of his or her time to the project. Or if you have 3 identical pieces of equipment, you can create one resource for all 3 and set the max units field to 300%. A cost resource is a resource used to capture expenses or track a budget. A budget resource is a special type of cost resource used to keep track of cost versus budget through the project lifecycle. Standard cost resources are assigned to tasks to keep track of expenses associated with the task, such as a travel expense, purchase of a license, and so on. Budget resources can only be assigned to the project summary task and are used to track the budget at the project level. A material resource is a resource that is measured by how many units are used. For example, you may need to use carpet to complete a flooring task. If you purchase carpet by the square foot, you can create a material resource for the carpet and set its unit of measure to square foot. You can also enter the cost per unit and have project calculate estimated costs per task. And we have our resource sheet view. So in my view bar, I'm going to switch over and choose Resource Sheet. When you select the Resource Sheet button on the view bar, the resource sheet will be displayed. The Resource Sheet view shows you all the resources that you have defined for the project. You will see information about the resource in columns. So these are all of the resources available in this example project plan that I have open right now. And the columns we have We have our row number column. This is simply the row in the resource sheet. This number is not actually part of a resource's information. So it's not really resource number 4. That's just where it's located, where it's typed in into this table. It has no real significance, just to tell placement. Then we have the indicators column here. These are pictures that show the status of the resources. For example, if a resource contains a note, your little sticky note will show in this column. A lot of the times you'll see a red man icon here. This tells us that the resource is over allocated, meaning it's doing, too much work on too many tasks at once, or it's scheduled for multiple tasks at one time. If it's only one person, obviously they can't do 5 things at once. So it's telling us we would need to reschedule the resource. And we call this the Burning Man icon in Microsoft Project. Okay, then we have our resource name column. This is a brief description of the resource. If the resource is a person, you can use the person's name. Then you have the type column. This indicates the kind of resource. In Microsoft Project, the types of resources are work, material, and cost. Then you have the material label column. This is the unit of measure, such as pounds, gallons, boxes, and so forth, for any material resources, which I don't think we have here. Oh, we do have one. The waste dump fee material shows as a ton, and you'll actually be inputting these in your next activity file. Then in the initials column, this is an abbreviation for the resource name. For example, Gloria Rodriguez could be abbreviated as GR. And then the last one we'll take a look at is group. And this is usually the department or team to which the resource belongs. For example, Gloria Rodriguez might be part of the advertising group. This is not, a necessity to enter, as you can see, for the resources in your resource sheet view. Page 68, the resource information dialog box. In the resource sheet view, whenever you double-click the row number of a resource, or even the name you could double-click on, this will open your resource information dialog box. And this box contains all the information about the resource grouped into 4 tabs. You have your General tab, Costs, Notes, and any custom fields. If you take a look at the General tab, this displays the resource name, the initials, the group, we have the type, and we also have the material label field. And these all correspond to several of the columns from your resource sheet view. If you provide email addresses for resources, you will be able to send them email from within the project. All right, so your first activity coming up in the next video will show you how to add new resources into your resource sheet view. So that video is going to be activity 5.1 on page 81.